Hola, amigas y amigos. Welcome to the MíraLA Podcast. I'm your host, Arianna Lemus. This podcast is by women, for women, and anyone willing to listen to women. Enjoy the show. Isabel Grace is a woman-owned florist business. Aside from making beautiful bouquets for every occasion, she and her team plan events to help you celebrate all of your family celebrations and milestones. From baby showers, birthdays, graduations, and weddings, Isabel Grace is a proud sponsor of the MíraLA Podcast, providing all of our guests their favorite arrangement of flowers. In this episode, I interview Patty Ortiz. She is a Latina aerospace engineer at NASA and currently is a project manager. Aside from being a high-driven career woman, she is a mother to her miracle baby. And she also advocates for postpartum mental health awareness. Let's welcome Patty Ortiz. Hola amigos, welcome back to the MíraLA Podcast. This is our second to last episode of season 1, and wow, it has been a journey. Today, I am so honored to be interviewing aerospace engineer Patty Ortiz. Hey Patty.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing good.
I'm so happy to have you on the podcast. It's truly an honor. You are the first aerospace engineer on the MíraLA Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be able to share my story.
Share your journey to NASA and what inspired you to have a career in aerospace engineering.
Well, my dreams started when I was 7. Mm-hmm. I watched this TV show called Punky Brewster. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it, but
my age is probably showing.
Anyhow, she was this cute, 10-year-old. She wore bright colors. She was very fun, energetic, and she was adopted, and she had a dog named Brandon. Anyhow, there was an episode where she had an astronaut come on her show, and she wanted to be an astronaut. And I was 7 years old. I didn't know what I needed to do to work for NASA, but after watching the 30 minutes, I was hooked.
At 7 years old?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's incredible. And from 7 years old, you obviously went, you were in school, and then high school, college. So what was that experience like of kind of being interested in STEM? I'm sure it's a very unique group of people. Not everybody wanted to talk about NASA or the space. So what was that journey like?
So basically, I was always pretty good at math and science, and I always gravitated to those subjects. And I went to an all-girls college prep high school. So everyone there was very focused on, getting into a good college, and that was my goal, right? Get into a good college that I could study aerospace engineering. And so that was my goal, and I ended up graduating as a salutatorian, which is number 2 in the class.
Wow. Congratulations.
So I think that was key to getting into a good college.
Right.
Graduating top of my class. And so I got into University of California, San Diego, and I was off to university. That was the first one in my family to go to college. So
I wanted to talk about your family. You are half Mexican, half Salvadorian, correct? What was that experience like for your parents to see their daughter get into a college like that and then become an aerospace engineer? Like, what do they tell you? Like, what was that journey like for them?
Well, I was raised just by my mom. It's a single mom household, and she studied up to 9th grade, so I pretty much had to navigate this all on my own. She didn't know about FAFSA or even how to apply to colleges, so I pretty much had to figure it out. And I actually didn't apply to anywhere locally because I knew that if I got into a local university, I would have had to stay here.
Right.
So I made sure that I was at least 2 hours away because I wanted to get out on my own. And so I applied to only schools that were 2 hours or further. My mom wasn't super happy about it, but she understood, and was supportive once I got into a good university.
And was it just you and your mom growing up, or did you have siblings as well?
I'm the youngest of 5, but everyone is a lot older. So the age gap is, the oldest is 22 years age gap for me.
Wow.
And so a lot of the my primary years were just me and my mom, because my siblings were already out of the house, married, and off living their lives.
So in a way, like, you did grow up with siblings, but majority of your childhood and your adolescent years was you were by yourself, essentially, and you did this whole journey by yourself, right? Because did your siblings have any input into your preparatory for anything like that, or?
No, they had their own lives.
Yeah.
My brother actually ended up starting his family, and then went back like in his 40s into college, which I'm super proud of him for doing that. It's very difficult to already have your family and then go back to school. So he went back and finished his college degree and did all that after his family. And there's no wrong way or right way to do this thing. So he did it, first family and then back to school.
So tell me about the work that you're doing at NASA currently.
So currently I'm a project manager in the Space Projects and Partnerships branch. My background is I'm an aerospace engineer, and so at this point I have 20 years working on NASA projects. And so I've used the last 15 years experience working on other NASA projects, and now I've entered into the management role. So a company will come to us and say that they want to integrate a technology onto an aircraft, and then we do flight research with that technology. And so I'll start from the beginning, right? So I'll start working with the lawyers from the company and the NASA lawyers, and I'll come up with a Space Act agreement, which is our contract. And I'll also figure out how much it's going to cost, and I get all the approvals within the NASA approval process, and then once the contracts are signed on both sides, and you can imagine that's a lengthy process working with the lawyers. Once I get the project signed off and funds are exchanged, it becomes an official project, and then either I manage it or someone on my team manages it.
I see. And how long do these projects last?
It really depends. So I'm actually currently the deputy PM of an Orion project, and that one I've been working on for 5 years.
Wow.
So that one is a spectrometer that is going to be attached to the Orion capsule, and it will be flying on Artemis missions 2, 3, 4, and 5. That project I'm pretty proud of because I will have a small part in getting the first woman to the moon, as well as the first person of color.
That is incredible.
She's going to fly probably 2026.
That's amazing. Well, we'll definitely be tuned in for that, and you'll have to give us all the information. So I'm curious to know your view on space exploration and technology. I know that's a very broad question, but I'm just curious what comes to mind.
What we're living in right now is extremely exciting. That in the past, there was really only one way to get to space. It was with the space shuttle. And now we have a ton of private industries that are investing in getting private astronauts, just citizens to go up and fly into space and do research. So we're living in a very exciting time that now space is a little bit more accessible. Obviously, there isn't a ton of people that can say they've been to space, but there are more companies, private and as well as government, that can get people there. So that's extremely exciting to know that we're living in this time that it's more accessible.
Do you plan to go to space one day?
That's always on the bucket list, right? Yeah, that's definitely something that is a goal, and wait and see. what happens.
If you had the opportunity to go to space, would you go by yourself, or would you want to wait until you could go with your family?
No, I think I would want to go on my own first, and don't sign me up for Mars. I'm off. I'm off the list for Mars.
Why is that?
The trip to Mars is 6 to 7 months just to get there.
Oh, wow.
So you're looking at being away from your family at least 3 years, right? So you can imagine being in a capsule for 6 to 7 months with this crew of 3 other people, and then you get to Mars, and then you have to be there for a certain amount of time for it to be value added, right? And then it'll take you 6 to 7 months to get back. Wow. So I have a small child. He's 3. I just wouldn't be able to be gone for that long. It's a long time.
That is a long time. And your small child, now that you brought him up, he is your miracle baby.
He is, yes. My husband and I, we had issues with unexplained infertility, and we tried for about 3 years, and then we did an IUI, 2 IUI cycles and 2 IVF cycles. And then we ended up getting pregnant on the second IVF cycle, so it was very exciting. We unfortunately had a miscarriage, and I needed a timeout from the journey. And I ended up reading this book called It Starts with the Egg. And being the engineer that I am, I read this book, and I basically followed all the rules that the book. It outlines, the vitamins that you should be taking. It tells you all the toxins that you should be removing from your body, such as perfume, body lotion that has perfume in it. And I went and revamped all of our household products, including all my makeup. So all of my makeup is clean brands, soap, body wash, laundry detergent, body lotion. All of that got switched out, and then vitamins for me, vitamins for my husband. And I did all the things that the book said. And the book said that if I do everything that it says to do, the egg quality would improve in 2 to 3 months. And so I did it, and then 5 months later, I said, okay, I'm ready to go and do our 3rd IVF cycle. And in my mind, I said, well, I'm in a better place now because I did everything the book said. The egg quality is going to be better. And we started our 3rd cycle, and we were waiting for a certain point in the cycle. And it was supposed to be the start of my cycle, and it didn't come. So I was 1 day late, 2 days late, 3 days late. On the 4th day, I said, and even when I was late the first time, I'm kind of a on schedule type of girl. The thought crossed my mind, like, what if I'm pregnant already? Which was crazy because before you start the cycle, you have to take a blood test, a blood pregnancy test, which is very accurate. So I had taken a blood pregnancy test just 7 days earlier, and it was negative. And so, but then when I was late, I said, well, maybe I am pregnant. So I didn't tell my husband. I didn't want to bring him on the roller coaster.
Just yet.
Yeah. And then on the 4th day, I took a home pregnancy test, and it came out positive, like right away. It was positive very fast. And so I woke up my husband, and I was like, babe, like, we're pregnant. He's like, wait, calm down. Calm down. Let's call the doctor. Let's get a blood pregnancy test, because what if this is a false positive because of the IVF medicine? Because I had already started the injections. I was already 10 days into injections. So he thought maybe it's a false positive. And nope. I went in, I got the blood pregnancy test, and my doctor called me. And honestly, she was one of my biggest cheerleaders. And in tears, she told me, Patty, you're very pregnant.
Looking for the perfect cup of coffee, brewed with care and served with a smile? Welcome to Garavana Coffee Shop, North Hollywood's favorite family-owned cafe. Here, we're more than just your local coffee shop. We're a community hub where every cup is made with love, every bite is crafted fresh, and every visit feels like home. From rich, smooth espresso to handcrafted pastries, we've got something to satisfy every craving. Stop by to grab a quick pick-me-up or settle in and enjoy the cozy vibes. Whether you're here for a morning boost, an afternoon treat, or a place to meet friends, we're here to make your day a little brighter. Come support local, taste the difference, and experience why we're more than just a coffee shop. Garavana Coffee Shop, where family, flavor, and community come together. See you soon.
What a journey it was to get to that moment.
So it ended up being a natural pregnancy. And she said that the baby was already there when the blood pregnancy test was taken 7 days earlier. He was there. However, the hormone levels weren't elevated yet.
Oh, I see.
And so it didn't capture it. And it said I wasn't pregnant, but he was there already.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that story. And I know there's so much more to the story after having your miracle baby. So if we could just kind of transition over to after the birth. I know that you want to share your mental health journey. So if we could talk about the postpartum part of the birth.
Yeah, so during my pregnancy, I was very anxious because we had already had a miscarriage once. And so the week of the birth, up to, the day I was induced, my anxiety level was at 1,000 when I got to the hospital. And I ended up being in labor for 53 hours, which is a long time. I didn't want to get a C-section. We had a birth plan with my doctor, and I told him that I didn't want a C-section. He said, okay, I can induce you, and we just have to be patient. As long as you or the baby are not in distress, I won't do a C-section. I said, okay, I'm willing to be patient. And so I ended up having the baby natural, not a C-section, but it took 53 hours, which is a very long time to be in labor. And I wasn't able to sleep. So I ended up being in the hospital for 5 days, and I did not sleep for those 5 days. And then once the baby was delivered, the doctor put the baby on my chest, and, it was just a euphoric, cathartic moment to have him there be, alive and healthy and on my chest. And then a few seconds later, the doctor said, uh-oh, I'm going to have to take you into emergency surgery and say bye to the baby, we're going to have to separate now. And that was crushing for me to be separated from the baby. We had just met. And so I ended up getting taken to emergency surgery because my placenta got stuck. So I was gone from my family. It probably took about 6 hours for the pre-op and then the actual surgery and then post-op. And when I got back and reunited, I had missed the baby's first and second feeding. And so it was traumatic. And so it ended up being that I didn't sleep for 5 days. And I started to feel very sick after 5 days. After 5 days no sleeping, and my anxiety being just through the roof.
And the trauma, right, that your body went through, not being able to have the placenta come out.
Yeah, just getting pulled away from my family, that was difficult. And so I started to feel not good that Friday when I got home. I started to see white spots, and then I could feel my blood pressure rising from the bottom of my toes all the way to the top of my head. And I just felt like something was very, very wrong.
Yeah.
So I called my OBGYN at 3 a.m, and I was advocating for myself on the phone, telling him that something was very wrong. I didn't know what it was, and I was telling him my symptoms. And then my husband heard me on the phone, and he came in, and I handed him the phone. And then it was pretty much like an outer body experience where I didn't know what was real and what was a hallucination. I was seeing things, and I wasn't sure if they were real. And there was, so anyways, my husband got on the phone, and the doctor said, you need to go get her these medicine. And he went and got me Ambien, Ativan, and Zoloft was what was prescribed to me. My most important concern was, am I still going to be able to breastfeed? And he said, yes, you can still breastfeed taking this medicine.
That's an intense medicine cocktail, by the way.
Yes, it is. So my husband would bring me the cocktail at 3 p.m. And he would take the baby into a different room because the doctor said the most important thing was for me to sleep. And so the cocktail would put me to sleep, and he would take the baby for 13 hours. So I would go to sleep at like 3 p.m. and I would sleep until 5 a.m. so that I could get better.
Yeah.
Because the doctor said the priority was for me to get better, because I won't be able to take care of the baby if I'm not better. So that needed to be the priority. And sleeping was going to get me better, basically. So it was an intense time because I'd never heard of what I was diagnosed with. It was called a Post Partum Psychosis episode. I had read about different postpartums, but this particular one is one of the most severe because you're hallucinating. You don't know what's real, what's not real, and it's like you're watching yourself go through the motions of life. And so I was telling my husband when this was going on, I was basically kind of in a fog. And I said, can we hold off on bathing the baby until I'm a little bit clearer in my mind? He said, sure. The baby's not getting dirty. He's not going anywhere. So we ended up waiting 21 days until I was a little bit more present. And that came with the sleep, honestly.
Sleep is medicine.
Yeah, exactly. And so I know that we don't talk a lot about our postpartum journeys. And I had never heard of this diagnosis.
Yeah, I've never heard of that either. And I know it's very vulnerable to share that. So thank you for destigmatizing, postpartum psychosis, because I feel like a lot of women would feel shame, right? Even just what you said, like not washing your baby for 21 days, like the judgment that would come from that, right?
Yeah.
Of like people judging you being a new mom. So I just want to thank you again for sharing that story, because I think it's important for our listeners to, especially women, to hear that and to know that if they happen to go through that or they know somebody that went through that, like we can just talk about it and we can share, because it's a real life thing that happened. So how do you, after that experience, continue to advocate for your mental health, not only at home, but also at work?
Yeah, so what you mentioned, one of the symptoms of the postpartum psychosis is shame. And so I had a hard time asking for help. And thank God my husband he's kind of a mind reader in that he'll just go into autopilot and help me in the ways that I need to be helped.
That's a true partner.
Yeah, it's amazing that he can preemptively sense what I need. And so, I definitely could not have gone through that experience without his help. I mean, he was having to be prime with the baby basically until I got better, which took a year until I felt more myself. So it was a long journey.
So with that journey, first-time baby and all the other things that you went through with IVF, are you wanting to grow the family?
Yes, I mean, we would love to have another. Obviously, time is of the essence, so we'll see what happens, but we would love.
And speaking of
Another.
time, it's because you are an older mom, right?
Yes, I had my little boy at 42. So now I'm 45. He's
But
3 years
Janet
old.
Jackson had her baby at 50, so there's time, girl.
Yes, that's true.
So to shift gears now, for all the Latinas in STEM, specifically wanting to get into aerospace, what are some resources that they can look into?
So for me, I would not be where I am without this organization called the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. And I found them on my college campus, and they became my SHPE familia. We were all studying different engineering fields, and we used each other just as a support system. A lot of us were first gen, so we didn't have anyone to ask, how do we do this? How do we get an internship? How do we study for these tests? So we used each other as resources. We also had organizations such as the Minority Engineering Program. They have those at most universities as well. They were a huge resource for me. So SHPE, what they focus on is the mission is to support each other, right? So I did a lot while I was in college, giving back, going to elementary schools and middle schools to share my love for science and STEM. And honestly, the more you give back, the more it's going to help you get to where you're going to be, a successful place. And finding the SHPE familia at my college campus, I was president for 1 year, and I ended up, when I was president, I ended up being on a team on a competition. It was a SHPE conference, and I ended up partnering with a Boeing professional, and I made a good first impression with him. Fast forward, I was graduating, I was a senior. A year later, I'm walking through a career fair, and he sees me, and he calls me over, and he's like, "Hey, Patty, aren't you graduating this year?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, would you like to interview?" And I said, "Absolutely." And so I ended up interviewing that day, and walking out of that interview, I felt great. There were a few senior managers that interviewed me and peppered me with questions, and I felt good walking out of it. And they said, "We're going to be making offers today, so keep your phone on you."
Wow.
And they ended up, so I had this dinky like Nokia phone at the time. Then I wasn't getting good signal, and I ended up not getting a call, but I went back to the booth and I said, "Hey, I don't know if you guys called me, but my signal's not good here." And they're like, "Oh, hold please. Well, let's check our list." And sure enough, I was on the list. And so they said, "Well, come in." And they sat me down, and then one of the senior managers came out with a piece of paper. And the paper had my name, and it said that, how much I was going to make, and my position as engineer scientist 1, working for the passive thermal controls branch, supporting the International Space Station.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
And it was in Houston, Texas. So they asked me, "Are you okay with moving to Texas?" And I said, "Absolutely." And this was 3 months before I was graduating. So all I had to do, it was contingent on me graduating. So all I had to do was graduate. And I had this dream job waiting for me.
That is absolutely incredible.
And that was all possible because of SHPE and the community that I built while I was in college.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are going to appreciate that. So before we wrap up today's amazing episode, very informational, I want to know what's one thing that the woman listening today can take away from being a woman like yourself in a very high-stake career, but also advocating for herself and her mental health?
In this industry, I end up being the only in the room a lot of times. And I always am vigilant that I need to take care of myself, right? And also set boundaries with my bosses as far as like not always being a yes woman. And I think I've learned in the last 20 years experience that I can't say yes to everything for my own mental health. In order for me to be successful and productive and amazing and brilliant, I have to take care of my mental health first to be able to be successful and productive. And so that requires me saying no to some things. And I think that I've learned that in my 20 years, that I can't say yes to everything.
I love that you said that. That's a clip. I want to give you your flowers, verbally and physically. So shout out to Isabel Grace for providing all of our guests their amazing favorite arrangement of flowers. And again, before we end today's episode, what's your connection to flowers or roses specifically?
I've never thought about that. I guess I'm not a flowers girl. I've always told my husband, don't spend money on flowers for me.
You are our first no flowers gal. So I love that, because not everybody loves flowers. But
I do love flowers, but I just feel like he could spend his money on other things. That's something else.
You're like, buy me a bag. As she walks in with her Louis, I'm like, okay. No, I love that. That was authentic, and that's true, and that's so great. But I'm giving you your flowers anyway.
I love flowers. It's just,
you like bags more. I get Patty, wow, this was amazing. You are amazing. I think that everything you stand for, everything about you is so authentic. And I think you truly are an inspiration to not just women, but Latina women. So thank you for being an inspiration to us, to me, to my crew. And we're so honored to have had you on the MíraLA podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I've enjoyed myself sharing.
Yes. Sharing is caring. Thanks, Patty. Thank you so much for tuning in to the MíraLA podcast. If you are a woman and would like to be on the show, go to MíraLaPodcast.com. Follow us on socials at MíraLA Podcast. Use hashtag MíraLA Mondays. And if you want to support the show, subscribe, share with your amigos, and tune in for new episodes every Monday. Muchas gracias.